here's some more that we've learned from the around 300 documents that were released, though they say that potentially thousands will be coming. So there's going to be a lot of updates in this case, as there should be. There shouldn't have been the gag order there was. I know some stuff has to go under. I mean, of course, to make a criminal case, but like, it's just ridiculous what a lid they kept on everything, gagging the family members. That was so inappropriate. And by the way, yesterday or Wednesday when I watched the hearing and I listened to Steve Gonsalves and I heard some of the details, all I could think was, I'll bet you it was Steve Gonsalves who cooperated with Dateline. He's been appearing on Dateline. The Gonsalveses have. They didn't appear in that One Day in Idaho documentary. Probably the way it works in TV is you cut an exclusive deal with somebody and then you can't do another one. But it was curious he wasn't in it because he's been so outspoken. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I don't mean to impugn him in any way, but I'll just bet you that Steve Gonsalves knew some things from law enforcement and shared them with Dateline because he was incredibly frustrated that nothing was getting out there. And I bet he did want people to know. And he didn't jeopardize the case. In fact, you know, look, cases go to trial all the time with a lot of the evidence having been shared with the jury pool and with the public. That's what voir dire is for. So you can find the jurors, and there are plenty of them who have not been infected by all that stuff hitting the Gen Pop. It happens all the time. They get screened. Sorry, what do you think happened with Diddy? Like, we all saw so much of that evidence. Who didn't see the CNN tape? Like, anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Let me keep going. They reported that in these papers that the kitchen door of the murder house, 1122 King Road, was ajar when officers arrived, and blood was smeared on the walls and the floors, coating the 4 college students' belongings and pooling by their bodies, which were in different areas of the house. It was smeared on the walls and the floors. I don't know how it got smeared. I don't really want to think about it, to be honest with you. You know, I think about like Xana Kernodle, who he appears to have attacked just outside of her bedroom or possibly in the doorway of the bedroom, but he was leaving the first 2 murders when he encountered her awake, and I don't think he bargained on that. We learned that he drove his car, it appears he drove his car away from the murder house for a couple of minutes around 4 a.m., and that's when her DoorDash came, her food. It's possible he didn't know anyone in that house was still awake, and he'd been sitting there for over an hour, probably just waiting for all the lights to go out. In any event, I don't know. Did she try to drag herself back to Ethan? Did someone try to drag themselves? I don't know why there'd be smearing of blood, or possibly just a hand on a wall as the girls fought or someone fought. It's just so awful. Some of the victims who were stabbed multiple times, quoting here, were covered in so much blood. Officers responding to the home at first were not able to sort out what their additional injuries were. In other words, they were so bloodied up they couldn't see. For example, it sounds like in the case possibly of Kaylee, how bad the beating was that she took, or maybe in the case of Maddie, that she'd been stabbed or sliced across her face as well. There was just so much blood. And you know from Howard Bloom's reporting, and he's had good contacts on both sides, that, and when we saw pictures, that the house was dripping blood on the outside. There was blood dripping on the outside. It was like the house was bleeding. There was so much blood. And he wrote of the police officer who felt he could smell blood. He walked into that house and it was such a bloody murder scene. He could smell blood and felt sick. Okay, they said, I think this is from, let's see, quote, "I was unable to comprehend exactly what I was looking at while trying to discern the nature of the injuries," one cop wrote in the newly released files. Unable to comprehend exactly what I was looking at. I talked to you about what they found in Kaylee and Maddie, both stabbed in the lung and the liver, and then also Gonsalves, Kaylee, with 2 brain bleeds, a stab behind her clavicle, which cut the vein in the artery, had over 20 stab wounds. Now we know it was 34, as well as injuries connected with asphyxiation and blunt force trauma. Kaylee was the only one who suffered blunt force trauma and asphyxiated injuries, they said, in addition to sharp force wounds. Xana Kernodle, who was killed, we believe, 3rd, the police say. He went up to the top floor, killed the first 2, went down. Xana and Ethan were sharing a bedroom on the 2nd floor. Had defensive knife wounds on her hands. Again, not surprising she was awake. And remember that we heard Dylan, who was the surviving roommate who would see him later, said she heard something like whimpering and him saying, a male voice saying something like, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to take care of you or something. Give me the team, please, producers. Give me the quote. But she heard him say something like, it's going to be okay. And obviously then he killed her. It's just so brutal. This poor young girl, 21 years old, she must have been absolutely terrified. Like, think of how terrified Dylan Mortensen was when you heard her testify on Wednesday. She's still living with the terror of that. A year later, think of in the moment, this young girl in her home, standing face to face with a killer in a balaclava mask, dressed in black, holding a bloody knife. I mean, it's just unfathomable. And they said Xana had defensive knife wounds on her hands. It was obvious, say the police, that an intense struggle had occurred. Oh. Kernodle's fatal injuries were stab wounds to her lung and her heart. She had over 50 stab wounds, mostly defensive. That poor girl, she fought to save her life. And amazingly, it seems like somehow Ethan slept through it. Maybe the fight was down the hall. I don't know, but he appears to have been stabbed and killed in the bed that the pair of them were sharing. Still on Xana here, they say police found her lying on her back in her blood-stained underwear and shirt with defensive knife wounds to her hand, including a deep gash between her index finger and her thumb on the left hand. Both her shirt and her underwear were covered in blood. Xana's face and body were covered in dried blood. According to the coroner's report, Ethan Chapin's fatal injury was from a stab wound under his left clavicle, which severed his subclavian vein and subclavian artery, and also his jugular. So he took care of Ethan. I mean, I don't know. There's nothing in here about carving. That was reported by Dateline, that Ethan's leg was carved. That's not in here. I don't know whether it's because that was untrue or they just didn't include it. The coroner determined that the murder weapon was not serrated, like a jagged edge. It was a single-edged, very sharp weapon, and concluded that a lot of force was used. It's just the brutality of it. I mean, poor Xana Kernodle, 50 stab wounds from this guy that, is obviously bigger than she is. He's got all the advantages, who's running high on adrenaline from these murders he's already committed. And she's there in her underwear, drunk, I think, from having been out with her boyfriend. I mean, no one's prepared. It's not like you're in a dangerous place and you're on alert and your fight or flight instinct is there. The line she allegedly uttered, as heard by her roommate downstairs, now she did not that she uttered, that he uttered and she heard, was, "It's okay, I'm going to help you. It's okay, I'm going to help you." I suppose that could have been Ethan, but it sounds like Ethan was asleep. There's more. When investigators canvassed the Moscow area to see where locally, if anywhere, the killer might have bought the knife, they visited numerous sporting goods and hardware stores to no avail. We now know he bought it on Amazon. Then at Walmart, while perusing knives on display, the Walmart employee helping Kohberger said that about 2 to 3 weeks ago, or helping the cop, said that about 2 to 3 weeks ago, a white college-aged male asked for a black ski mask that would cover his face. She was unable to provide much detail other than he was taller than she was and maybe had a tan skin complexion. And then she told him they only had camo ski masks available, and he walked away. Was that Kohberger? Well, we believe he got the knife on Amazon. Did he look for the balaclava ski mask at a Walmart? And did this particular employee see him and deal with him? He doesn't have tan skin. Just one of the leads they appear to have been trying to track down. Investigators also spoke with Kohberger's fellow students at Washington State University. This is new. A fellow teaching assistant said the two discussed that Kohberger wanted a girlfriend, and they discussed that on many occasions. Back to the incel theory. Kohberger also liked to discuss his area of study, which was criminal decision-making and burglary-type crimes. The student also told investigators about some injuries he witnessed on Kohberger's face and hands. And while he was unsure of the date, he thought he had noticed the injuries on two separate occasions in October and November 2022. The murders were on November 13th, the wee hours of Saturday into Sunday. One was a large scratch on Kohberger's face, which the student described as looking like scratches from fingernails. The student also saw wounds to Kohberger's knuckles on two separate occasions, and when he asked Kohberger what happened, he replied that he had been in a car accident. Well, we had not heard about any car accident. Can we put the picture on the board of him in the white shirt the morning of the murders? I mean, we've done a lot of speculating over this picture, but it's very interesting. Now, this person who was apparently both a PhD student and a TA, just like Bryan was, had a talk with him and had seen him and suggested wounds on the knuckles. You will notice in this picture, only the left hand shows the thumbs up. The right hand's not visible. And he's showing the knuckles, and they're fine. I mean, I'm assuming he was right-handed, as the vast majority of the populace is. It is possible he had marks on the other hand and on the knuckles. I remember we all looked for those on the cross-country trip back home with his father. Didn't see much, but that was weeks after the murders. I think at least 3 weeks after. I don't know about you, but if I have a bruise, it goes away faster than 3 weeks. And he's a lot younger than I am. I don't see any scratch on his face. You can't quite see the left profile over by the ear. And let's face it, he's so white here, it's possible the guy's wearing makeup. I actually wondered about that before because he looks bloodless. He really looks like a vampire. And it's possible he wore makeup, and it's possible he was covering up a scratch. And you know what, guys? It's possible he took this picture not fully in celebration of his dastardly deed, but as proof he didn't do it. You know, in his mind, oh, I was just like taking a thumbs up. It was just a random selfie. It didn't mean anything. And maybe he thought this was a way of showing he didn't have marks on knuckles or face. And maybe he was clever enough to use makeup and to hide the right hand. It's an interesting question. Since President Trump was sworn in, his administration has made enormous progress at a breakneck pace. But don't forget, while they're moving mountains for the good of the nation, you've got your own personal savings to worry about. And one of the best ways to look after your savings is through diversification, particularly with gold, like from Birch Gold Group. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 40%. OMG. Central banks continue to bolster demand for gold by buying in record quantities. Global instability and tension is high, and Birch Gold makes owning physical gold extremely easy. Easily convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or buy some to store in your home safe. Just text MK to the number 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of your savings today. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.